What is up, YouTube? This is Alex here from Team Generations, back again with something a little bit different today. I don't think I've ever done anything quite like this before. I'm going to preface this entire video by saying if you haven't seen my Blau deck profile, you definitely need to kind of see that before I go into this. This isn't going to be just like a standard deck profile. This is more just like the budget text that I'm going to be going over to replace some of the money cards that I included in my original profile. So if you haven't seen that, I'll link it in the description. Go check it out. With that being said, I'm going to cover two different builds for this today. One of them focusing on kind of like restanding during your main phase, peppering your opponent with attacks so that your main Blau onslaught during the main phase just becomes a little bit more aggressive and effective overall. The second one kind of focuses on like classic Nova Grappler restanding during the battle phase, getting a bunch of units to stand. So very excited to bring this to you guys. I know Blaus were supposed to be the budget archetype of this blue Cavalry Storm, whatever the name of the set was, but didn't end up being that way. You still needed all the money cards for like a real competitive deck, so I found these two different builds pretty effective still. And if you are looking to maybe just try out Blaus before you invest fully in it, I think this is a good stepping stone for that. So without further ado, let's jump right in and get started. Alright, so this is option number one. Now if you guys have seen my previous Blau video, like our optimal build I'm going to call it, that one focused more on restanding your Blau rearguards essentially during the battle phase. This one kind of focuses on restanding rearguards during your main phase where you're able to activate effects. Might not be as effective, but it's just a lot more cost efficient overall, and sometimes we have to make sacrifices here and there. So I'm going to show you guys some of the new cards that I did add. Again, this is kind of assuming that you already know how the Blau engine works, kind of. If you've already seen my previous video, you're definitely going to understand that. But I'm looking to add 3 or 4 different cards. Yeah, 4 different cards in here. So I'm adding 4 of Unknown Adamski, 4 of Cutting Jer, 4 of Beast Deity Black Tortoise, and 1 of the Clear Frame Whirling Wish Cursed Cleansing. This essentially allows us to restand during the main phase off of Jer's effect. Jer's effect is on rearguard circle. When placed, we're going to Soul Blast 1, rest this unit, and another rearguard, and then we get to draw a card. So as you can see down below, we're actually not running the draw triggers. I guess that's 5 new cards. Since this is a budget deck, I think the draws were pretty expensive for Nova Grappler. If they're not, you could slot them in. If you would rather just stay completely budget, these guys are fine. Since we're not running draws, I feel like it is a good idea to have some sort of like a draw engine in this deck, and this guy allows us to rest either our Black Tortoise or our Galaxy Blau Cougar if we want, and that allows us to get off a couple other attacks or gain hand generation off of the Clear Frame Order card. So basically what we would do is rest Jer and another card. Let's say it's the Tortoise to start with. When it's the Tortoise, his skill himself is to Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. You can restand, and then it does pretty much what Adamski does. We get to attack our opponent's Vanguard, and then if this attack did not hit, we get to restand it again. So kind of like a self-sufficient restander there. Very good paired with Jer, I find. Like I said, this deck is a little bit resource intensive. You have to make sure you kind of count ahead for your restands and how many multi-attacks you can do. You always need a Counterblast open for the regular Blau combo. The other thing that you can do is use Jer, and then instead of using it on Black Tortoise, put it on Galaxy Blau Cougar, and we have 2 ways then to stand Galaxy Blau Cougar. If we want, we can use Unknown Adamski. His skill is on rearguard circle. One place we can Counterblast 1, stand one of our other rearguards, and attack our opponent's Vanguard with that unit. At the end of that battle, if that attack did not hit, just like the Black Tortoise, we get to restand that unit. So we can then attack with him, restand him, attack. If it didn't hit, we get to restand once again. So let's assume it does hit. That's where this card comes in, and again, you can bump this up if you want. You can bump down maybe one of the Black Tortoises, whatever you kind of feel comfortable with, or maybe like an Adamski. But this Order card essentially allows us to choose one of our circles, unlock the lock card on that circle, and restand the rearguard on that circle. If you unlocked a card or restood a card, we get to draw a card. So again, a little bit of a draw engine there, not too bad overall. No shield value with it, so kind of sucks in that regard. But otherwise, we just attacked once. We rested him, stood him with the Adamski, boom. Attacked, standing him again, and we can attack again. And obviously the regular Blau engine itself just attacks a lot into the Stern Blau Cougar, etc. But overall, that's kind of the idea behind this deck. Also, what you can do too, if you want, we do as much of the skill as possible. So with the Unknown Adamski, we don't have to actually stand one of our other rearguards. We can just place it, Counterblast 1, and attack our opponent's Vanguard with that unit. And then at the end of the battle, if that attack did not hit, we get to stand it. But let's say it did hit. even if it did hit, so you combine these two cards, even if it did hit, you're able to then Soul Blast 1, Counter Blast 1. You can restand this guy on his own due to his own effect and attack again. So you get in like 2 attacks off of this guy in the main phase alone, which is really cool. So I found it was kind of interesting. And again, this is a budget build. This isn't like the most optimal in the world, but it definitely is playable. So if you guys want to check this one out, go for it. Totally, you know, playable option, like I said. Let's move into the next option, our option number 2, which is a little bit different. I focused this guy, like I said, on the main phase attacking, whereas our next one is going to be still during battle, but using different cards to restand a bunch of different times. So yeah, let's hop into that. Alright, jumping right into it then, we're going to be looking at our second build over here. Again, this one kind of focuses on restanding during the main phase with a couple different cards that I switched out and added. Just starting right at the bottom, just want to address the elephant in the room, or the lack of heals in the room. We took out heals in this deck, so we are running a kind of like a front trigger centric combo, and as such, I just want to make sure we pretty much always have a front either in our hand or just coming off of a drive check. I think that you still can survive like at least 2 turns with this deck. Without the heal triggers, it's not absolutely necessary. If you want to add them back in, totally cool. You can run the 8 fronts, totally cool. But I figured, you know, let's go for like a more like fun, aggressive kind of play style. So I took the heals out. Starting over here, just to address that little front trigger combo, we are running 3 of Gain X2 or ×2, as well as 4 of Grit Bangle. So Gain is skill is once per turn on rearguard circle is when our drive check reveals a front trigger, we can stand this unit, so you're basically guaranteeing almost 2 attacks off of this guy. That guarantee comes in the form of Grit Bangle. When placed, you may reveal a front trigger from your hand and put it to the top of your deck, so these 2 cards work really well off of each other. The Blau engine itself gets, if you have just one of these and one of these, that you get 4 attacks out of that. You get an additional 2 attacks off here if you hit a front trigger, and we have a couple other units over here too that kind of help us multi-attack as well. Again, Blaus are the most impactful restanders, but you know, without the money cards, it's really hard to restand them. There's nothing really in the game that does that. So as a result, I am running 4 of Burstriser. Its skill on rearguard circle is when our Vanguard attacks, we get to Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1, and stand this unit. And if our opponent has 4 or more cards in their damage zone, this guy gets an additional 3,000. So helps us meet the minimum threshold for, let's say they hit a defensive trigger and we get to restand, we hit a front trigger, we didn't have one of the Silver Fists, I'll go over that in just a second. This guy would still hit, which is really nice, so just applying that pressure over and over. Silver Fist skill, we're running 3 of him. I even run one of these in my main competitive build for Blaus. I think it's a really good card overall. Its skill on Vanguard rearguard circle is the increase of trigger effects, front trigger effects, revealed for your drive check. Gain an additional 5,000. Also on Vanguard circle, when its attack hits a Vanguard, you get to draw a card and then discard a card from our hand, so a little draw drop, which I really like. The main allure of this thing is that, let's say we hit a front trigger off of Gain and it's not on an Excel 2 circle, you would basically stand up and you have 19k. If your opponent hits a defensive trigger, you're no longer hitting if it's unboosted. So what this does for us, it basically puts us another 5k over, so you're hitting 24. If you're on a Excel 2 circle, that is what, a 28k? Yeah, so even if they're force number, they hit a defensive trigger. Gain's restand is a little bit more impactful, and obviously everything else on the board too just kind of gains benefit from that additional 5,000. I just want to note too that it does stack, so it's a continuous. It's not like a once per turn per card or anything like that. So if you have 2 of these on there, your 10k from the front trigger becomes 20k, which is honestly pretty good. Like, you can put real pressure, start to get big attacks off. So yeah. Also, the last restander that I am running is this, how do you say this again? Vizarted Ashura. So his skill, pretty simple, is on rearguard circle once per turn. When it attacks, we get to Soul Blast 1 and stand this unit. So just very easy, self-sufficient restander. It does have that 12k body, no gift type, but again, we're not really trying to ride this guy ever, just want to be on rearguard circle. The nice thing about Blaus too is that it generates multiple Excel circles every turn, so you get to kind of have a lot of space to put down a lot of these restanders, and I feel like you can have a really aggressive, really impactful turn every single time around. And we don't really have too much of a soul issue in here. If need be, we can also put our Blau Cougar into our soul, so that kind of fixes that issue there too. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching so far. If you guys did enjoy this video or learned anything so far, I would ask that you please consider hitting that subscribe button. Really helps us out, lets us know that you enjoy this content, maybe leaving a like on the video as well. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. I know these lists are kind of spicy. These aren't like the absolute optimal builds. Again, I would ask you to just go watch the original build that I have. I know this isn't really like a real deck profile. It's just me kind of explaining some tech cards that I would add to my original profile. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. This is Alex from Team Generations signing out.